Welcome to Street Level with Chris Chermak. Today my guest is the president of the Scranton Chamber of Commerce, Robert Durkin. Some of our topics today that we're going to discuss is the Chamber's legislative priorities for 2021, some of their workforce programs, and COVID small business support activities that we're going to have for this upcoming year. And you might want to listen in on that because there are some grants that are going to be available for some of the hospitality sectors. So we'll listen to see what Bob has to say about that. But as far as this podcast goes, we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks. So we're going to have some very interesting guests coming up, and certainly always going to be open to different ideas. And if somebody wants to come on, I'm looking forward to talking to anybody that would like to discuss any issues that pertain to Lackawanna County. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you find this discussion with Robert Durkin interesting. So here's Bob Durkin. I just was thinking before you got here about the first time when I called you about, I don't know, it's probably almost 4 years ago.
That's a while
or
ago.
more. I don't even remember how long. And I said, what did I say to you? I said, I want to come meet you, and I'd like to know what kind of relationship the county had and a working relationship with this Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. That was my question. So,
and I gave you the encyclopedia of that and what county government is and who's who and what's what.
It was something. It was, and I think I got there at 5:00 in the afternoon, and I never left till 7:30. So it was a good meeting, and I never thought we'd be sitting here doing this.
I've never been accused of being short-winded.
Well, that's why I figured. This is my very first podcast, and I thought, who would be a good first victim, or what do we want to call it? And I thought, I know who would make it very easy. So, yeah. But I'm glad, and it's important. So, but I said, when we sat, I said, one of my goals would be to work with the chamber and get a great working relationship because it's only going to benefit the whole region. Yeah. And I think, other than we got bombarded with a COVID pandemic, but we were off to a good start, and I think we've been holding our own as we've moved.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Chris, I've said to you, I'm not in any way pandering when I say this. This is the best relationship between the chamber and the county that I've experienced. It's been more than just cordial. It's been interactive. It's been effectively a symbiotic relationship. And we needed it this year, didn't we?
Oh boy.
This was no time for people to be putting a flag in the ground and saying, this is my space. So we're pleased and I'm really excited with where you all have gone throughout this awful and most challenging year. One of the things that I've told a lot of people because of our relationship and because of the relationship that that we have with Jerry and Debbie and likewise with Brian Jeffers at the helm over there. What I think has been so great about this situation is I know that you're interested in what I'm doing because we talk a lot,
mm-hmm.
So when we have those conversations, they went from being the formality of gee, can we have a conversation with the county commissioners, to being casual conversations. Ones that then become much more substantive. And as well as I do, we've done some really important things for the small business community and for the community at large.
And no better timing than right now, too,
yeah.
and last year. So, and, when I was coming in, I certainly didn't know anybody in the county really that worked in these departments. And I never stop praising the people that work for Lackawanna County. And we have some just phenomenal people that work night and day on this stuff, and they're dedicated, and boy, I'll tell you, they're just good people. And Brenda Sacco in economic development, I think she does a great job.
Yep.
Sandy Upshinsky with her grant writing skills does a great job. So,
yeah, and I would say this. So we've been back and forth with Sandy on the broadband grant application. Maybe we can touch base on that later. But Brenda has been just, again, a wonderful leader of that department and a great partner with us on economic development.
Yep. No question. She does a good job. But the good thing is we have a good working relationship. And I mean, the people that you have they're just top shelf people.
Yeah. I mean, look, none of us can do all this stuff by ourselves.
No.
Impossible.
No.
You know, and your role, your role is really a policy role, and my role is an oversight role from a management standpoint. I jokingly, tell people that I know less about the chamber than anybody else on the staff, because these are the folks that are living it every single day, and I'm trying to manage it from a different post.
Well,
but I can't, and we couldn't do any good collectively, you, me, and others, if we didn't have the good people below us.
Oh, no question. You're only as good as your people, and I know that from growing up in my business. So, but like I said, getting to know these people and getting to see how they do what they do every day. I mean, I could go on and on about all the different departments, but we'll stick to what we want to talk about here. But I'm just impressed with the people we have. So they make my job easy, and I'm no person to micromanage. I check on people. I take my position very seriously. I go to work. I go to work at 7:30 in the morning. I get there. I visit with the sheriffs. I visit with the maintenance folks. And then I travel throughout the building and talk to the different department people and just see how things are going. What do they need? So, they're the experts. I'm not, but
yeah,
seems to be working. So one of the things we want to talk about with you and with the chamber is your legislative priorities for 2021. You kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit of the background of what we have been doing, because it's still a work in progress. At the end of the last year, we talked amongst ourselves with the staff and some of our board leadership, and we said, look, taking all partisan politics out of this equation, the results are what the results are, and where we were left was, in a sense, pretty enviable as a region. And that is, we have Congressman Matt Cartwright, in the majority in Washington, and not only in the majority, but now having been moved up to be one of the chairs of the majority chair of one of the 12 appropriations committees. And we know what that means, that appropriations is the purse strings, and he or she who controls the budget controls the operation. So that was a really important thing. So again, this is not partisan. It's not just talking about the position we're in.
Right.
Bob Casey was then, surprisingly, in January, moved up into majority, tenuous, but majority in the Senate. And as I like to say, oh, by the way, in case you didn't know, the President of the United States was born in Scranton. So in case that slipped by anybody, so we put all those things together from a Washington perspective, and we said we certainly have to put a focus on what it is we need or want, because everybody and their brother is going to be knocking on their doors.
Yep.
And so the process we undertook was, again, started with our Government Affairs Committee, made up of some really great business people around this region. Chamber Board got involved. We talked about what we felt we needed. And we didn't just talk about chamber things. We didn't just talk about the things that we wanted. We talked the bigger picture of a lot of different things we wanted to do. And ultimately what came out of that early part of the process was a focus on workforce, on education, on COVID relief, small business support, infrastructure, and a variety of other elements. But those were really kind of at the top of the list. And so we then took that and we marched it around, and we came to see you guys, and we went to see the state officials. We had a meeting with Senator Casey, and in fact, next week we have a meeting with the mayor, and we're discussing a time frame to meet with the congressman.
Okay.
And all of this, through the whole process, what we said was, we're not bringing the chamber agenda to these meetings. We're saying, here's the base. Here's what we've identified. What's on your list? And so each way, it's been really, really kind of fun, because most of it is common. In fact, I would say most of the priority elements are the same. We all agree on them. Let's start with, again, small business COVID relief. That has been critically important. And as I said it before, Lackawanna County has really stood out in Pennsylvania as an organization under your leadership where you guys have focused a lot of resources. Clearly you have to take care of the basic emergency services and the healthcare issues predominantly. But beyond that, you've taken discretionary money, both your county money and CARES money, and focused it on small business relief, and we've been able to partner on that.
Yep.
But that continues to be an issue because it's been great that there have been waves of stimulus dollars, both from the federal, state, and county levels, and some dollars from the city as well. But we know that it's not finished. We're not out of this yet. So that was a priority and continues to be a priority, and it was for you all. The other thing that really was interesting was the infrastructure. And while we always talk about our roads and bridges, but infrastructure in the biggest picture is not just that. It's also utilities. It's water, sewer, electrical, grid issues, and what we've seen in a spotlight. And this is one of the things that emerged as probably our number one priority on these legislative priorities, and that is broadband.
Right.
We've seen it, with the schools. And again, you guys did a great job with the county responding to that. You put some resources right into that. I know some of the school districts weren't equipped effectively, and you stepped in and bought equipment and helped them.
Well, that was something, that certainly I never even thought about. You get locked down in a pandemic, and then all of a sudden you have kids that need to, go to school via Zoom or whatever media.
Which we never even heard of.
Right, never heard of Zoom until this year. But it's like, wait a second, we don't have Wi-Fi here. So that was it's still going to remain to be a huge issue throughout the state, let alone just here in the county. So
yeah, so I think it deserves a little bit of attention because of what you guys have done.
Absolutely.
Not only did you get that, I think it was about $1.5 million that you put into it right out of the gate, but then started thinking bigger picture, I should say. So right now, as I mentioned, the grant application that we were helping with, $3.6 million request to the federal government to expand the towers all throughout Lackawanna County. And that is a priority for us because it isn't, we can talk about it from a standpoint of high school, or I should say, secondary education, but it's also higher education. And when we talk about workforce development, you cannot separate those. When we're talking about better prepared workfora
well, and you could
those
even
kids.
You can go into the health and welfare because we have people that are visiting their doctor via a Zoom type link. So absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're 100% behind that on those priorities. But again, not to go through, believe me, if I went through all of them, it would take us about 2 hours. But among the things that have emerged are workforce related issues. We have to have a better process and a better vision countywide for what we need to do to develop long-term career opportunities and career pathways for our students, because the matchup between, and you might listen to all this and say, well, Chamber of Commerce, what about business? What we've been doing is we're matching up the business needs. We go out, our staff does these programs we call Engage, and we've done scores of these, especially in this last year, virtual and where possible in person, where we ask the businesses, we go and see them one-on-one, the leadership, what do you need, what are your challenges? And a number of issues keep emerging on those things. But at the top of the list is the talent pipeline. We need to do everything we can from third grade on in our secondary education programs. At higher ed, we have to deal with the different types of education that are needed for our workforce, and we have to make sure that our businesses understand their critical role on that. You can't. We're in a world now, Chris, as you know, you can't just hire someone, toss them into a job, and say that'll be fine. When I was a kid growing up in Oliphant, everybody went to work at Specialty Records, and they got a job, and it was a lifetime job. Now the lifetime learning is more of an issue than anything else. A year or two into the job, you may be doing a great job, but the technology has changed. And so there has to be an investment by the companies, but it isn't just an investment. We have to make sure that as a region that we're supporting that we're connecting them with the higher educational institutions and vice versa, so that we're all adapting to these needs. It's a really amazing and fast-paced environment right now, and that's a priority for us. Whatever we may or may not get connecting through Washington or Harrisburg, any resources that may be available to help us, those are going to be the critical issues, though.
Well, where do you see our workforce efforts going? We have CanPack coming in. We have numerous buildings being built on top of the hill in Jessup, and
Yeah, here's the challenge. And again, we all live in our own space, right? So because I'm with the Chamber of Commerce and because we deal with more than 1,400 members of the Chamber of Commerce, and again, that's always an issue that people don't quite understand. We are a private organization,
Right.
membership-based organization, but we're different than most chambers because we have 8 different affiliates underneath the chamber umbrella. So we don't just do Chamber of Commerce work. We do economic development. We do marketing. So we're marketing the region outside of our area. We do Skills in Scranton, which is our workforce development program. Metro Action, which is a small business lending.
Right.
Leadership Lackawanna. I always say the best example that we'll do anything to bring jobs in is we also own a utility company and a water company. So we'll do whatever is necessary. But back to sort of the point on where we need to go and what we're doing on the workforce side. We've built a new job board. So we have long had job postings, but we've put a whole new technology level into this whole thing, where we're trying to do everything we can to connect our businesses. We want to make sure that we can fill these jobs. The other thing that I would say about jobs, by the way, along those lines, some people will say, and again, let's call this like cocktail party talk, although we haven't had any of that for a year,
yeah,
right? Where I might be with somebody and they say, well, so-and-so, my daughter's at Penn State and has an engineering degree, and unfortunately, she won't be coming back here because there aren't any jobs. And I ask the question invariably, what makes you think that there aren't any jobs here? Where did you look? Because there are jobs in every sector.
Yes, there is.
As we're sitting here right now, posted jobs, that is to say, either through CareerLink or known posted on national sites for Lackawanna County is about 1,600 job openings. Throughout northeastern Pennsylvania, the region, that number is into the 10,000s. But just use ours, so that's just the posted numbers. So I'm going to say, Chris, I'll round it up because it's true. We probably have about 2,000 job openings right now. I can tell you the challenge. If I had the HR people from CanPack, from Chewy, from Cardinal Glass, from any of our trucking concerns, and our hospitals, our educational institutions, it isn't just the blue collar, as it were. It's all jobs. They're having great difficulty getting people to come out to apply, even though we have thousands of people unemployed and a number of people who have just decided not to go back into the workforce. So that's a challenge and it's not alone. We're not alone. This is the whole country is experiencing this. So we have to try to figure out what kind of approach we need to take as a region. And that's where you guys come in with the Workforce Development Board, because there's federal and state money that filters into the regional workforce board that it comes under your collective charge, working with us, working with the educational institutions. We got a lot of work to do. We have to figure out how do we shake that down so we get people applying for these jobs. We can't bring people in here. We can't bring businesses in when we can't find workers for them.
Right.
So
well, and one other issue that we talked about early on, not today, but one of our meetings probably a year ago, was transportation to the mountain. Not even you don't even think about that. How do you get these folks there? So, thankfully we were able to get that bus route. I hope.
Yeah,
once we get through the pandemic, it's gonna.
It took us about 3 years to ultimately get a bus run up to Mid Valley Industrial Park, Jessup Small Business Center, and Valley View Business Park. And this is no fault of Colts or anybody along those lines. It's just a question of resources.
Right.
The things were really lean. We started working with the Scranton Area Foundation with what has emerged as the NEPA Moves initiative. And what I think was really interesting on that is that group included social service agencies as well as economic development organizations like ours and a lot of other folks. And if you look at it on the surface, our interest, of course, primary interest was getting access, public transit access to those businesses. And not just there, but in Keystone Industrial Park, where Gertrude Hawk and Barry Callebaut, which is the spinoff company of Gertrude Hawk, is up there. Those folks are desperate for some bodies, but you can't get a bus line right up into that space yet. So we need to continue to work on that. But here's what I thought was interesting. That group, that NEPA Moves group, had groups that were thinking about the social service side of things, trying to help low-income individuals get to medical and for grocery shopping and things like that. And then we came in and we had, the business side. We wanted to get them the jobs. And that's where they came together. The confluence of those ideas was like the light bulb over our head saying, wait a minute, we're actually talking about exactly the same thing here. And that's where when you all worked with Colts through the county and said, we need to make this happen. Now, it's been, it's taken a while. We have to get going. It's a chicken and egg thing. If you didn't have the transportation, then you don't have anybody there that needs it. But now that it's here, we have to get the word out to that population. That's just one of the areas we're trying to work on to sort of chip away at, the barriers to people being able to get those jobs.
Well, hopefully when this pandemic is we're looking at that in the rear view mirror. Hopefully that's going to be a better situation getting people there. So
well, let's think about it in this sense. Let's use transportation as an example, but this is going to apply into a lot of other areas of our, not just our economy, but our personal lives and social aspects of our living. If you think about where we are right now, the world is always changing. Forget about the pandemic; it was changing anyway, very dynamic. But what I think this has happened here is some things, a lot of things that were sort of hanging out there in a somewhat passive way, and were accelerated. And for example, we talked about Zoom, Teams, or any virtual online, communications tools. Those things were there, and a lot of people were using them. But now everybody's using them. Right. And I don't believe that we're going to certainly hit a switch when this is over, because I don't think it's officially going to be over. I think what's happened is it's accelerated changes that are going to continue in our society.
No question.
And so with that, it's going to shine a light on a lot of other things, not just bus transportation, but how about other means of transportation? We go back to Uber and other ride share opportunities. We don't hear a lot about that right now because a lot of people are avoiding that. Right. But that is going to be coming back. And so I think what we need to be thinking about from a transportation standpoint, again, from a job standpoint that I'm thinking about, but it applies to the other elements of our lives, is a broad transportation plan for all of Lackawanna County and frankly for all of northeastern Pennsylvania. And I know, by the way, and I applaud the fact that you all are exploring the concept of working with Luzerne County Transportation Authority. And I know it's early stage, but that's the kind of thinking we need. We need to be saying, let's not worry about our own turf. Let's not worry just about Lackawanna County. Yeah. It's about northeastern Pennsylvania. And so I really encourage high-level, creative, inventive thinking that says, let's not just say, well, we don't have a bus to run up to Keystone Industrial Park. All right, well, what other means can we put together? How can we help those companies get people up to their locations? And I think that's all going to evolve very quickly as we move out of so-called COVID.
I think it will.
But I don't, again, like I said, I don't think we're really out of it. I think we're just sort of evolving. And that's just going to be one element of that evolution.
So one thing when I first when you guys gave me my first tour of all the facilities that you have, and the thing that really was surprising to me and interesting to me was the incubator sites that I really didn't even know existed up on the mountain in Jessup. So how are things there in that facility? I know there's one in the city and then one in Carbondale. Okay. So how are they working now because of the pandemic?
Well, what's interesting about that is that it really hasn't skipped a beat. Okay. And I think that's another one of those elements, Chris, that when we think about the evolution of our economy coming out of this, I believe there's going to be much greater interest in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be opportunities for people who have moved from the major cities, and we know that that's already happening organically. And by the way, we have been working with your folks also to market that. Yep. We're out there on social media and a number of different with the local Greater Scranton Board of Realtors to give people an access to information about jobs and quality of life. And I bring it up in the context of the incubator and entrepreneurship because we like the idea of bringing in talent that may have had contact or connections to northeastern Pennsylvania or Lackawanna County. So people who either were born and raised here, who've now moved back, they bought homes, and they're working remotely. They're maybe working out of New York or Philadelphia or Boston or Baltimore or somewhere else in the globe, but they're living here now.
Mm-hmm.
And we think if we continue to build up and return those native sons and daughters, and also individuals who are connected through their higher educational relationships. And frankly, we've heard a lot of stories about people that had no contact and no relationship with Scranton or Lackawanna County, and they've moved up here because they recognize the quality of a life and the quality of a safe living location.
Absolutely.
You know, and so think about it. The more we build up within our population these really talented and educated and experienced people, a lot of them are going to start thinking about entrepreneurship. And so the program that we're talking about in our entrepreneurship program is Scranton Enterprise Center, Tech Ridge Center up in Jessup, and the Carbondale Technology Transfer Center up in Carbondale. And we label that collectively Ignite.
Mm-hmm.
So let's call it Lackawanna County Ignite. And what we've long done is we bring in entrepreneurs. They apply to be a part of the program. They have to have a business plan, so we work through the Small Business Development Center. They have to have financials, so we work them through a financial institution because we know that if they're going to be successful as entrepreneurs, they either have to have some capital or have access to capital. And so we work with all that stuff. And then we do programming. So once they come into the program, we don't just give them an office and let them run. We help them. We hook them up with legal services, marketing services, financial services. We do a lot of peer-to-peer. So our facilities are set up in a way, pre-COVID, hopefully post-COVID, where these individuals could sort of socialize with each other, talk across the hallway, and meet in the cafeteria area. And so we have actually created the space that way, and I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's really cool and creative space.
It's state of the art. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so the idea is let's get these people, bringing their ideas together and working with each other. The next step for us, and this is one that we've been discussing recently, and it's going to be a charge, and including with some of our federal priorities, is we want to see what we can do to take this outside the bounds of those buildings. What we're saying is we don't want to use the real estate as the question. We want all of Lackawanna County to be part of the Ignite program. So if you're working out of your garage in Covington Township or Scott Township, or if you're working in your basement in Jessup, Carbondale, Old Forge, we want you to have a chance to be a part of this program. We want to be able to provide you with some resources, technical assistance, information, hooking you up with the likes of the Ben Franklin Partnership, folks from SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, again, the Small Business Development Center. We've also grown things in another direction, where Penn State Scranton has created what's called their launch box down in South Scranton. And that's where they call it a pre-incubator. So before some companies that are really early stage, not quite ready to make it into the full incubator program, not quite having their feet on the ground. The pre-incubator program through Penn State, the launch box, that's a real opportunity as well. So then we can, nurture some ideas there. And Dr. Marwan Wafa, who's a terrific guy, who's a member of our board as well, he and his team have put some of their faculty into that program. So it's really expanding beyond just the SBDCs, the opportunity for startup businesses to talk to people with the technical knowledge to help them get their businesses off the ground. We talk about our mission at the Chamber to attract, sustain, and grow business, to attract, sustain, and grow jobs. Attract sort of generally fits the idea of us marketing, which we do through the Scranton plan, to market outside the region. We do major national marketing. That's where the Chewies of the world, and that's where the Trammell Crows and the Cardinal Glasses come from. Sustain are the things that we do to help sustain our existing businesses, the legacy businesses that we have throughout Lackawanna County. And grow represents that entrepreneurial movement. We think we have to put attention on all three of those areas, and we've tried to do so. But there's really a growing emphasis on that last one, on that entrepreneurship and incubator services.
I can't think of a better way for somebody that's starting out in a new business or even just a dream that you'll have everything at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So and the guidance is, you can't put a price on that. So
Yeah,
I think it's a great program.
Well, think about it, Chris. Now, let's say I'm a technology guy, and I've got new software that improves the way you filter water. Well, that's great. That's what I do. I'm an engineer. I've come up with this great idea. This is something that could change the whole world. You know what I don't really know? I'm not big on finance. I really don't understand marketing.
Right.
I don't understand how I might get some grant money or something, resources to help me move my company along. That's why this program exists, and that's where we try to fill in the gaps.
And all they have to do is call the Chamber of Commerce.
There you
and
go.
they can get right in.
342-7711.
That's it.
Or check our website.
That's right. We have also the Slibco. That's another division of that. So explain that a little bit.
Sure.
That was very interesting to me when I first learned about it.
Yeah, most people actually know something about Slibco. They just don't know what Slibco is.
Right.
So Slibco is actually, we're celebrating our 75th year of existence. Post-World War II, here's a little bit of that history when I say that I can occasionally be long-winded. Right after World War II, if you think about it, in Lackawanna County, we were at the end of the coal era. We were coming out of the war effort where there was a short-term burst of manufacturing to support the war effort. But immediately after the war, and I mean like a week after the war ended, the government canceled all contracts and everything was going to be done. And one of the biggest employers in the area was the Murray plant, which was right down the south side. It's still there. The complex is still there. Valley Distributing, just at the end of South Washington Avenue. And they were making products for fixed-wing aircraft for the war. Well, of course, they didn't need that anymore. And so all these jobs, thousands of jobs were going to be lost. So the leadership of the community, and I mean from Carbondale to Old Forge, Newton Ransom to Elmhurst and everything in between, literally came together. And it was the business leadership, it was the public leadership, it was religious leadership, it was big and small. Think United Way or its predecessor, Community Trust, Community Chest, where they literally came together and said, we're going to do a plan for how we can take care of our own needs, including making a pitch to the Murray Corporation to come back into Scranton and build small appliances and washing machines and things like that. That's what they made during non-war period. And in order to do it, the Scranton area, Lackawanna County representatives raised money and said, we will build the buildings that you want. We will do speculation, if you will, as long as you'll come in and create these jobs. And people talk about that now, and that's the norm in economic development. That was not the norm then. The Slibco, the Scranton Lackawanna Industrial Building Company, was born out of that idea. So was the Scranton Plan, which is the marketing side of things. And frankly, another organization that we run called the Lackawanna Industrial Fund Enterprises, which in its day lent money for businesses to build factories and other locations. Things have changed over the years in terms of how that works, but those three organizations still exist. And so Slibco started with spec buildings before anybody ever heard of that. And it started up at Keystone Industrial Park. So Keystone Industrial Park was old coal area. And so the creation of Keystone Industrial Park led to the creation of Stauffer Industrial Park, the Scott Technology Park, the Glenmora Corporate Center, W.W. Scranton Office Park. I believe in total we've created 16 different business and office parks in Lackawanna County, spread out throughout the county, including the most recent one that we wrapped up was Mount Pleasant on the other side of the river here in downtown Scranton, the gateway into the downtown. Right. It's now occupied by Geisinger and Sheets. And so Slibco consistently went into land that was mine-scarred or otherwise, degenerated land. So, not only did we build buildings and create the infrastructure, but we also cleaned things up. And over the years, has literally been, a couple $1 billion worth of private investment, tens of thousands of jobs created. I've often said when people ask why they would support the chamber, and I say if you're a restaurant or you're a barber shop or you're a car dealership, many of your customers are coming in and they have full-time quality jobs because the chamber and Slibco built the land, the infrastructure. The Scranton Plan did the marketing that brought the businesses here or helped grow the businesses that were here. And so those people are employed and they can afford to buy your car, your hamburger, your shirt or dress. And that's because of the backstory of what we've done. So I encourage people to, take a look at, for example, I mean, the stuff that we have going on up in Jessup and Archwell right now is really exciting. Some of the biggest buildings ever built in Lackawanna County. Trammell Crow at the top of the mountain in Jessup just completed their 1,000,000 square foot warehouse building.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and we're excited, and we know that there's something positive about to be coming from that. I can't get into the specifics, but there's some great job opportunities emerging. And by the way, when you land some of these really big name national companies, one of the great things about it is they really are high quality organizations. I mean, CanPack is an international organization. So those of us born and raised, and I still live in Oliphant, saw with sadness the end of Sinram and Specialty Records and the whole WIA manufacturing legacy. And yet, if you drive up there now, it's amazing. In a short period of time, there's a huge facility going up. And these folks are cutting edge international company that makes canned products, like for, soft drinks and craft beers all over the globe. And it's really, you'd say, well, that's just a pretty basic thing. This is cutting edge technology. And these jobs are going to be very good jobs.
They're going to be good jobs, and it's going to be a tremendous asset to this area. And I just, to see that come in here and you see that old plant that was sitting there for years just pretty much vacant, and then to see it actually be just flattened, torn down, and start from scratch. I mean, these guys are here for the long haul. There's no question. So there's going to be some great jobs. I just think it's great. So, for people out there that don't know or don't look at go on the chamber website, scrantonchamber.com. You can look for jobs, join as become a member, but everything that you need to know about business is pretty much on your website. So it's a good thing. Anything else on that you want to talk about, or you want to talk about the small business support we have for the COVID?
Yeah, why don't we shift gears to that, because
that's the key thing right now. So
yeah, it's funny. We had an executive committee meeting, chamber executive committee this morning, and I had mentioned to our executive leadership that there are 8 different initiatives that we're involved in right now, and none of them were on our work plan for the year because they didn't exist. Virtually all COVID related or directed. Again, I can't say enough about the way Lackawanna County has responded. If you don't, sometimes this is the wrong way to put it, but people always say you don't want to see how sausage is made, right? But behind the scenes, I know what you all have been doing, the public safety issues that you've been covering, the public health issues that you guys have been covering. But then, as I said, I'm really, really proud of how well we've worked together to try to address the emergency needs of our business community. It started, early on with a couple of different initiatives where we tried to get the word out about, CARES dollars and how they were going to be used, and the payroll protection programs and providing technical assistance on that. We've actually, the numbers are escaping me here, but I'm going to say there are literally over 1,000 Lackawanna County businesses that have benefited directly from initiatives that we've done together or that we've done in partnership working with federal and state resources. So again, there's right out of the gate, the state created an emergency loan program. We were the conduit for our businesses to help them get on the application process and score some low interest loans. We also helped again with PPP and EIDL, the federal stuff. But then we were through Metro Action, our small business lending, because we had the infrastructure and because we were certified as a lender, we were named to be the technical assistance purveyor for the statewide small business grant program. So that was the first one that came around, and we did that and got grants for hundreds of Lackawanna County and northeastern Pennsylvania businesses, because we actually do that for 9 counties. And then when you all stepped in and said you wanted to use some of your discretionary money, CARES money, I believe it was $4.4 million or $4.5 million.
At first, I think it was. I know.
And then another one.
Yeah, there was, just in that, I think we were over $6.5 million. So
yeah, so the distribution of those, that went to another, I'm going to say 250 to 300 Lackawanna County businesses. And then the one that's coming out of the gate right now is the hospitality industry lending or grants. So that's about $2.5 million coming from the state. And we're working with Brenda and your economic development team. Hopefully we'll be launching this, and I think the plan is to launch it in early March.
And that's going to be through Metro Action, right?
Yeah, it'll be your economic development department and Metro Action collectively, and it's a great partnership. We work well together, and our target. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I'm hoping we get to a couple hundred additional businesses. It's very specific. It is for the hospitality industry, so there are particularly industry codes to which this can go to. We're still making that sausage.
Yes, yes.
But it's an opportunity for additional capital to get into the hands of those. The other thing that we've done through Metro Action, and some of it is state money and some has been passed through, because we do lending through Small Business Administration and other resources, we've been able to, with more, I think it's about 120 businesses that have loans through Metro Action, we were able to forgive, I think it was three full months of payments for them. And we've made arrangements to defer payments as well. But in this case, it's like grant money right into the source. Yeah. And by the way, there's a layering of the legislative affairs activities. That is to say, just like you and I, right? So we talk to you guys with the county, we talk to the city, we talk to the state, the federal government. And from everything from the PPP program down to some of the local activities that we're doing, because remember, everything was being done in such a rush, there were a lot of gaps. The most recent one being that for certain businesses, LLCs, S-corps, smaller businesses, non-corporate entities, unfortunately, the language in Pennsylvania, the Revenue Department, read forgiveness of loans and grant money as income. So here, the small business is saying, well, I got my PPP grant, loan grant, as it were. Maybe it's $10,000. That's going to help me to stay afloat. But then all of a sudden they're saying, now that's going to be considered income. You have to pay Pennsylvania income tax on that. Right. Well, the good news is working with our state legislators, and I'll give a lot of credit to Senator John Blake on his way out, but Mike Carroll, Kyle Mullins, and Marty Flynn, and Bridget Kozrowski, we talked to all of them about this stuff, and the state just passed revisions to the revenue bill so that for those businesses under PPP and others, it's not going to be considered income. Yeah. And you have to keep your eye on the ball. And from a chamber standpoint, we saw that. One of our key members had brought it to my attention a few weeks ago, and we just jumped on it and said we have to make sure that it gets passed appropriately and quickly. And so a lot of moving parts.
Every day you got to be able to bob and weave. I learned that real quick. But thank God, the new administration I'm a part of. Thank God we got on the bandwagon right away before we even knew about the pandemic. And, to have a working relationship with you guys and then, to put it right into action. Given some of this money that we gave out, I'll go back to Christmas. It was 2 days before Christmas. Well, it was a few days before that, but I got a phone call from one of the business people here in the city, and they said, you got to help us. You got to come up with something. We have to help the people at the restaurants and bars. I mean, they're devastated. And it was on a Sunday. I reached out to Brenda and I said, Brenda, you got to come up with a Christmas miracle. We got to come up with something for these folks. And she said, I think I have an idea. And Monday morning, she had $1 million to give out to restaurants. So, we tried to make it as fair as possible, and we do it as a first come first served basis, and who's gonna have the best economic impact on. We're not just gonna throw money into a black hole, but so we try to narrow it down to these businesses. I mean, I didn't pick them, but the economic development department did. But that day, I stood downstairs from 8:00 in the morning until 1:30 when we were finished, handed out $110,000 checks. And these folks had tears in their eyes. So I wish we had $30 million to give out because it's never going to be, it was never enough. But
one of the other things you guys did, it sounds like we're like the Mutual Admiration Society, but you guys worked with us pre-Christmas and moving through there on the buy local, shop local program. And that worked out really well.
Yes, it did.
Because we just kept pounding it. The message was real simple. hey, help keep your neighbors afloat.
Yep.
You know, the guy or lady that owns the gym or the hair salon or the restaurant, the ones that have been most negatively impacted because of restrictions and shutdowns, you know, help them because this is their livelihood. They didn't ask for this. They've been doing a great job keeping, you know, establishing and moving their businesses forward. And what we need to do is to help. And that initiative we know had a big impact. We heard from a lot of the businesses because it was more than just marketing. We did things like our staff created this I don't know, the technology escapes me, but think about an online QVC kind of of an arrangement. And I think I just heard earlier today, we were talking about some of it, 8,000 people, you know, looked in on what was happening with these small businesses. And so we know that people went directly, and not only we saw the direct stuff, but then indirectly people went and purchased things from these stores. And there's a message of whoever's listening to this right now, it's not over. Just because Christmas holiday came and went, these folks still need your help.
They're still there. Yep.
And if you're lucky enough, if you've got a good paying job, if you have your resources, not talking about just throwing money away, but, you know, buying online is fine. And by the way, that's another thing that's grown, and you guys provided grant funding through NEPA Alliance to help establish a number of these small businesses that did not have any online presence.
Right.
And you helped them create that. And that's another thing that goes back to that earlier thing I said about how it's going to be a continuum. It's never going to change because some businesses that just, you know, think about it. If you're a small town operator, or I'm a barber. Bad example for me to say that, right? But if you're a barber and you got like yourself and another person working with you, and they say, okay, well, you know, how do you get online? How do you have people, you know, book their times online? You don't have time for that. You're busy cutting hair. Yeah. You're busy doing what you do. You're busy making pizza. You're busy, you know, running your small gym. You don't have that capacity. And so you guys, that was really great. You stepped in. You worked with Jack Rieger, who's one member of our board, who does a great job, his public relations firm. And he is a technology guy, and he helped working with you guys and these businesses. There's just so much that's been happening. Half the stuff I've forgotten, to tell you the truth.
Well, and that's what it is for me. It's this whole year's been a blur, and but some of the things that we've done in this area and what we've done, I don't think you could do somewhere else. I mean, we all pulled together. I don't know if that would happen. I don't know. You know,
it does help that we know each other.
Well, boy, we're not too far away either when it comes to location, but it just works, and I hope it continues. And I know people are right now, they're working hard trying to even find more funding and more grant money. And I mean, it's a never-ending battle, but they're doing a great job. Your folks are doing a great job. I can't say enough about the county people. They impress me every day. So kudos to all of them, and I hope it continues. But so far, so good. So we'll see. But anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, I
think we kind of touched on a lot of good things.
I don't know how Marky's going to make this into a manageable size for you.
Well, there's one thing nice about a podcast. You can do it for 10 minutes to 4 hours. We're not going 4 hours.
We get close to it.
But
no, I just want to say, it's always a pleasure to get a chance to sit down and talk to you, and to the people out in the community. I want them to know that your commissioners, and the leadership maintain these kinds of relationships. I've had a long-standing and terrific relationship with Jerry Natariani. Again, I'm glad to add you to that mix, and Debbie to that mix, because getting things done always starts with relationships. It really does.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know the other person or organization exists and what they do, then how can you possibly, take full advantage of it? And these days where we're trying to squeeze everything out of every dollar for the sake of our business community and for our community at large, more than ever, we need to be able to take advantage of that. We've got to build on the strengths of each of the organizations for the betterment of the whole.
I can just we'll take our economic development department. There's only 3 or 4 girls in there. So they're doing all this with very limited people. So, it's a lot of work, but they do a great job, and thank God they do. So,
good work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on my very first podcast, and I hope it's a success. What a great vehicle to get our word out and educate some of these people that don't know what's going on. So I appreciate that very much. I appreciate your friendship and look forward to
thanks
long working relationship.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I think we had a great discussion with Robert Durkin. I found it very interesting. This is all paid for by the friends of Chris Chermak. Our next podcast is going to be a local legend, I'll add, Micah Woodard from Lavish Body and Home. I think you're going to find that next podcast very interesting. You know, we have a pretty good relationship that we've had for a good part of this year, fighting a lot of battles together, trying to get help for some of these local businesses. So don't forget to tune in, and I look forward to seeing everybody on our next podcast. Thank you very much.